So today we're going to make a black bean soup, a chicken and black bean soup. And the reason I'm going to show you how to make this is that if you're trying to balance your blood sugar and meal plan, if you have a family and all those things, once a week, especially during the colder months, I think it helps to make a hearty bean soup or some kind of, high protein soup. And to me, I like to combine the plant protein from beans and lentils with animal protein like chicken or beef or pork, because then you get the best of both worlds. You can easily make a lot of these things 100% plant-based without the meat or with less meat, but I'm going to show you how to do both things. So, one of the first things I'm doing is I'm using a steel to hone my knife. Doing this, if you're going to have a cooking day, doing this before you cook, it just gets your blade ready to cut, makes it better. This isn't sharpening your blade. This is something you do on more of a daily basis. And then, depending on how much you cook, once a year, once every 6 months, once every 3 months, you get your knives sharpened. All right, I'm going to do that because I'm going to cut up an onion. Okay, but the first thing I'm going to do is I've got some bone-in chicken thighs. I really like to use the bone-in chicken when I'm doing stews like this because it sort of makes its own chicken broth, the bone. And this is one of the most economical ways to buy chicken. So I actually don't want the skin. If I have my preference when I'm buying chicken in bulk or from a producer that I like to buy whole chicken leg portions all together, because you then you don't really have to do much to the chicken. You don't have to cut them up. So what I'm going to do is I don't mind a little chicken skin, but I don't need all of this because I'm not going to eat, and I don't need that nice crispy skin on the outside. So I'm using, this is an example of don't use a knife if you can use scissors in the kitchen. I use these great Cutco kitchen shears. And Cutco makes fantastic kitchen shears, and you can send them back to be sharpened, or you can get them sharpened locally. Cutco will always take care of their products for their whole life. So let's just take off some of this. And I'm heating a pot. I'm going to make this in this big Dutch oven, which I've got heating up. And just before I turn this on, I put a little bit of oil in it. Probably should have waited on that. Because when you're going to brown something, and I want to brown these chicken thighs, you want to do it on relatively high heat. There we go. There, I'm just going to, you just want to get the bulk of that off of there. There's a label, chicken skin. And I'm going to feed this chicken skin to my chickens. I know, it's so gross, and yet they love it so much. Okay, so we're going to put these in the pan. And I'm going to brown them for about 4 minutes on each side. I'm going to go wash my hand because the first thing I did before I started all this working with raw chicken is I filled the sink with hot soapy water. The reason I did that is because gross, raw chicken, I want to be able to wash things really easily, especially my hands. But also, I'm making all this on a 1-hour break between clients today. You can tell I'm kind of, sort of camera ready today. And this afternoon, as soon as I'm done and someone's back with my car, I need to go see someone in the hospital. So I want to make sure I've got food for the rest of the evening. So I'm going to take, this pan is already dirty with yuck chicken. And I'm going to save it because once those are browned, I'm going to take them out, put them back on here. I know they're cooked, but I'm going to put them back into the soup. So I'm going to leave that out. And then while that's going, I'm going to cut up my onion and bacon and my other ingredients. So what I didn't say that I did the night before on this is chicken and black bean soup. So what about the beans? I actually cooked the beans already this morning. Now, a shortcut you can always do is have canned black beans. And I always have canned black beans in my pantry, for emergencies. But when I can, I want to cook my own beans. It's cheaper, it tastes better, and it's a little healthier. But not healthy enough to not use beans just because you're busy. So I soaked 4 cups of beans in ample water, drained the water off this morning, and this morning as soon as I got up while I was helping my daughter get out and ready for school, I filled this pot with water and brought these to a boil and simmered them with some kombu and a little cumin. And then I turned them off and they were done. Doesn't matter if they get a little overcooked because it's for soup. So that's just been sitting aside until I had time to get back to it. And I know a lot of my clients, because I specialize in blood sugar, I put people on continuous glucose monitors, we hack our blood sugar. They say, oh, I shouldn't eat beans because they have starch in them. Beans do have starch in them. They are also screaming high in fiber, and they have protein. So, you might be very sensitive to starch and carbohydrates. But if there's the very first thing you should start trying to introduce into your diet is beans and lentils, split peas. And that is because they are fantastic at feeding your microbiome, the bacteria, the folks that live in your gut. And when you feed your microbiome fiber, you're feeding those good, the helpful bugs. What they do with that food is they improve your glucose tolerance. Feeding good bacteria like the bifidobacteria, the Akkermansia in there, when you feed them, keep that healthy, it's kind of like a natural Ozempic because it will help produce GLP-1. It activates those gut peptides that help you feel full, that help you produce insulin, and help you metabolize glucose and manage your blood sugar. So it's really a long-term strategy, eating enough fiber and paying attention to your microbiome. Yeah? And I mean, there's just so few downsides to eating beans. Not only are they really economical, it's an inexpensive way to get protein and nutrition. When I make a bean soup, I make a lot bean soup. I just flip that chicken. 4 more minutes on the other side. When I make a bean soup, I make a lot of bean soup. And so it gives me either dinner or lunch leftovers. So I just cook once on the weekend. Some people like to take it for lunch. But it really, in an hour of my work this morning in between clients, I can have days of food. And I could make twice this much and freeze a whole bunch of it for later. So it's a great soup. And even if you're a meat eater, like I said, you can make this completely vegetarian. But if you are a meat eater, it's a really thrifty way of stretching your meat. I'm using, how many did we say? I have 3 bone-in chicken thighs here. So what did that cost me? I bought these from the store. These cost me just under $9. Dried beans cooked, very inexpensive. I probably spent another $1 on 4 cups of dried beans. So we're up to about $10, plus a few of these other things. I'll bet that I'm spending definitely no more than $15 on this entire meal. $15 for this whole meal. And this would probably stretch to at least probably 10 servings. There's probably 10 servings of this. So it is really economical. All right. So I'm chopping up 1 onion, and I'm going to chop up some garlic. Ooh, I'm not going to do garlic next. You know what I'm going to do next is bacon. All right, so if you don't eat pork, let me tell you why I'm using bacon. First of all, you don't have to use bacon in this recipe. I'm just using bacon for flavor. And if you've seen how I use bacon, I keep it in the freezer, I take it out, and I cut off a chunk. So that's like a little less than 1 inch. To me, bacon is in the same category as cumin or oregano. It's flavor, it's not protein. If you eat enough bacon for it to be a protein source, you've got way too much saturated fat in there. And then I just chop that bacon up and I cook it with my onions. So here's the bacon thing. If you don't care about bacon, just leave it out. It tastes really good without bacon. I just love that smoky bacon flavor whenever I make this. If you want that smoky flavor, but you don't have bacon or you want to stay plant-based, you can use liquid smoke. So, do I have some in here? Yeah, I do. So you can use this kind of liquid smoke if you are vegetarian, and this is just literally liquid smoke. It's totally vegetarian. Vegans can use it. So if you're I know when I was on a plant-based diet for a number of years, I really missed that umami, that smoked ham bacon flavor in soups. And I was able to replace that with a combination, some liquid smoke, but also using that kombu. So sea kelp kombu is super high in glutamic acid. And that glutamic acid, that's part of monosodium glutamate, MSG. Not only does that kelp, or that kombu, really rich in trace minerals, which is one of the reasons I use it, it's rich in glutamates. And so it's a major flavor enhancer, and it gives it that umami flavor. So between the umami, maybe a little liquid smoke, and building flavor with your onions and garlic and your herbs, you can have a really great vegan black bean soup. All right. Turn the timer off. So I'm pulling my chicken out, and you see how I brown my chicken? Again, I'm using this to build flavor. I can see in my pan, I've got a little fond, a little brown bit sticking to the bottom. And now I'm going to saute my vegetables. And this is where it's like every other soup. Oh, am I out of olive oil? I need to go back to the shop and get some more olive oil. I think I'll survive this. There we go. Now I was browning my chicken on a higher setting. I'm going to turn this down a little bit and get a good spoon to stir it, and some salt. Always add salt to your sauteing onions for soup. Now, when you're cooking the onions for a soup like this, you want your onions to break down into a mush. And when you want your vegetables, like your onions, carrots, celery, to break down into a mush so they become the flavor base for a soup, you add salt while they're frying. The other thing you can do with it is you can turn the temperature down a little bit, and you can sweat your onions. And this is something I do for soups a lot. If I don't want the onions to get brown, and in this case I don't mind as much, you can put that lid on and it sort of steams the onions down a little bit, and it keeps that onion smell from flying through your house, which is half the reason I'm doing it right now. So my next plan, so this is building flavor. I've got the onions and I've got the bacon in there, and I want them both to cook down, and I want the fat of that bacon to render out a little more slowly. I don't want to brown that bacon because I just want the flavor. I just want the flavor. So I'm going to cut up some garlic here. This isn't the best garlic. You notice I'm not putting the garlic in first thing with the onions because the garlic has a lot of natural sugars in it, and garlic will burn. It's an aromatic, and it goes in later, just like when you'd add ginger to things. So I'm going to put this in my bowl. I like to keep like a bowl nearby, so when I have the next vegetable that's going to go in, the next thing that will go in, it goes in the bowl and that gets added. I think that's a nice way to do it. And then, I've got my little pan. So my next plan, after I add my vegetables and I get this going, this is when I start thinking, what's next? What do I need to do? Clearing things up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use chicken broth in this, and I don't have any homemade chicken broth right now, so I'm going to use, this is my favorite brand of chicken broth, the Pacific unsalted chicken broth. Nothing wrong with salt. I'm going to add a lot of salt to this soup, but I use unsalted because I want to control my salt myself, and it throws off my cooking when, if I have salt in the broth, then I inevitably oversalt because like you see, I add my salt with each ingredient to help it break down. So it's just a preference. And then the other thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add unflavored gelatin. Now, if I had a really good homemade chicken broth, it would have lots of gelatin in it, but this is a great cheat. I just add about a tablespoon of this, and the unflavored gelatin gives a really nice silky feel to any of your broths, and it adds collagen and extra protein like glycine that you need. So I do that, and I do that in about a half a cup of cold broth, or if you just have water, you can put it in a little water and set it aside. You want that to dissolve first before you add it to hot stuff, otherwise it gets all globby. So that's ready. And then I kind of need to decide if I'm going to add tomatoes to the soup, because you can do the soup without any tomatoes at all, and it's really good. And then if you are going to add tomatoes, you kind of have a choice. So you could add, if you don't have home canned tomatoes, you can add some, like I like this brand of San Marzano organic peeled tomatoes. You could do a can of that. If you don't have that and you just have tomato paste, tomato puree, if you're in the UK, I always open a can and then keep my extras in a jelly jar. You could add like a couple of teaspoons of that, fry that. And you know, again, if you need to build flavor, because this is all plant-based and you don't have the flavored cheats of browned chicken skin or the bacon, then after these onions are a little more sweaty, I'll show you. We're gonna fry up a little tomato paste. Let's do that. All right. So I've just been sweating my onions at a lower temp, kind of medium low, and I've turned this back up to sort of medium. And then now what I want to do is I'm going to add my garlic and my spices, and I'm going to fry that tomato paste. So first, let's put my garlic and spices. Now, when you make a black bean soup or something of this kind of, you might have your own spice mix that you like. And this is the time to add it. For me, most of it is cumin, and I'm going to add, I probably put a tablespoon of dried cumin in with my beans when I cook them. I'm going to put in maybe 2 more teaspoons of cumin. And then I'm going to put some dried oregano, maybe a heaping spoon. I'm just using a teaspoon, you know, that you used to set the table with. I'm going to put, I don't know, a teaspoon or so of cumin. And then you might want to put in your favorite chili powder. You know, something that's nice in here is to put a dried chipotle chili in there, and then, you know, take it out when you're done so no one bites into it. So some kind of chipotle chili. It depends on your heat tolerance. I am going to use smoked paprika and a mild one. I don't want this spicy. I'm going to add spice later when I serve it. And I have a family member who doesn't like it really spicy. And that's because when I make a black bean soup, chicken and black bean soup, I find this is a great soup that kind of makes this great soup salad combo. So when I serve it, I'll serve it in like one of these wide bowls, a nice big bowl of black bean, and sometimes I don't put chicken in it if I don't have chicken. And that ends up being kind of a blank canvas for a meal. And I top it with a ton of stuff. So I'll top it with some cheese. I like a little feta cheese because that's what I have available to me in my store. So cheese, diced avocado. I'll put diced radishes, and if you can, do a quick pickle of those radishes, soak them in some rice vinegar or lime juice. So pickled radishes, a bunch of cilantro, and again, if you're plant-based, pickled radishes, cilantro, avocado. Oh, it's so good. And any kind of, if you want chilies on top of it, so that's where you could put some, maybe pickle some jalapenos and chop that up, would be fantastic on the top. So you have this big chunky salad on top of your soup, and you can mix it in, and it is gorgeous. It's so good. So I don't feel like I don't feel pressured to really knock anybody's socks off with this soup, because I know that for me, this soup is going to be something we add fresh vegetables to at the end. Okay, so this is how I'm going to fry my tomatoes. Now, I talked about glutamic acid or glutamates, that kombu is rich in glutamates, glutamic acid, and that's an umami flavoring that like MSG has. Another great source of flavor or glutamates is tomato paste. And you can do more flavor building by frying that. So you don't have to fry it. You know, there's times, you know, the times where you're just like, I just need to get this on and cooking. That is perfectly good. But one thing about being a plant-based cook, and if you've ever eaten a vegan diet, you know that things can taste really bland until you learn how to build flavor and use herbs and spices skillfully. So one of the flavor cheats that you can learn is to fry some of that tomato paste in your soup and fry it, you know, right in the bottom of the pan for about a minute. And I do that at the same time as I fry my spices to bloom the spices and bring out their flavor. All right. I think we're just about done. Okay, excuse me. I'm going to put this in front of you again. All right, so all that's left is I'm going to add everything to my pot, and then our soup is done. And so I'm looking at the time here. That's 21 minutes. So this should be a 25-minute situation, and that's all I'm involved, and I can go back to work, and then dinner will be ready whenever I need it. And I should say that even if you wanted to make this a crock pot dish, like let's say I needed to just put this on and leave the house, or this needed to go overnight for the next day, I could do all this in a pot, even a smaller pot, and then transfer this to a crock pot. All right. So I think that's everything. That's my timer. So I'm going to put my... I know, so this is my splatter screen. Whenever I'm frying something, like I was doing those chickens, I put the splatter screen on top so it doesn't splatter grease everywhere, but then it ends up getting everywhere. All right, put the chicken back in there. And then I'm going to pour the beans on top. But here's the thing, whenever I add the cooking liquid to my beans, I always put more than I think I need. So I'm not sure if I need all this cooking liquid. So do you see I'm just pouring off a little extra? Pour all those beans on top. All right, yeah, I'm gonna need almost all that liquid. And then I'm gonna add, you know that this is the chicken broth with the, I don't know why that keeps going off. Oh, I keep pushing the wrong button. So I'm gonna add that chicken broth and then add a little bit more. And that filled this pot, so I actually couldn't make much more than this. So this is 4 cups of beans, 4 dry cups of beans. I could probably have done maybe, I think I've done this before with other soups. I can do 6 cups of dried beans cooked into a soup. And that's the capacity of this pot of mine. And I know that my crock pot is smaller, and I'm pretty sure my crock pot I can do 3 or 4 cups of dried beans cooked into a soup, and that's the capacity of my big crock pot. Yeah, but I'm gonna bring this to a boil and then reduce the heat to a simmer and done. And I'm gonna keep this bean cooking liquid because if I find I need more liquid, this is the liquid that I wanna add. Because, I mean, you see all that dark color? So you know we go on about like blueberries having these great, you know, that color of purple and purple cabbage being these great polyphenols for the microbiome. Well, I don't know if you've noticed when you first soak black beans, they are purple. They are that same bright purple, and they have those anthocyanins, that's the name of those polyphenols. And those polyphenols are consumed by your microbiome, and then they produce things that have an anti-inflammatory effect and help you metabolize your blood sugar better and all those things. So choosing to have black beans now and then, whether it's a black bean soup or a black bean salad or opening a can of black beans and making a tasty quesadilla, a quick meal for your lunch or your dinner, That's all the same kind of polyphenols. That's eating the rainbow, and you can do it with beans, which is pretty cool. All right, and that's it. Bring to a boil, turn it down to a simmer. I'm gonna just let it simmer for a couple of hours or all day. Right now it's 10:45 and I'm going to get back to work in a few minutes. But that's it. And the only thing I need to do left is to cut up those, those toppings, the cheese, the avocado, pickle a few radishes, and cilantro to put on the top, and that is dinner. So I hope you like this. Leave me a comment if you have any suggestions for anything I could do better or have any questions. Thanks for watching.